Hi everyone, it's me, Crafty Witch, and welcome back to my channel. So I thought I would share some of my rattles with you guys. I use rattles in my magical workings quite often and for different reasons. I will use them for healing. I will use them to call in my ancestors. I will use them for prayers of protection. I will use them during exorcisms, if you will. I will use them to clear spaces, like do energy clearings of like a room or a house, a home, that kind of thing. They are a great alternative if you are not allowed or able to, like for instance, burn sage or sweetgrass or incense in your home. Like let's say somebody has severe allergies to smoke, or perhaps you live someplace, maybe in an apartment or something, where you're not allowed to have anything burning of that nature because it's in your lease. And if you do, then you could get kicked out and you don't want that, right? So this is another alternative to doing some energy clearing, raising up energy, bringing down energy. Why would you want to bring down energy? Well, let's say there's somebody, maybe, I'm trying to think of a scenario. Kids. Okay. Some of you might be able to relate, those that have kids. You know how sometimes they get really excited and they're like just like running up the walls and they're, you know, super hyper. You can work with rattles to help bring them down. The same with drumming. And this has been proven. We even use this at work to help de-escalate youth that we work with. But rattles and the drums do work hand in hand with each other. So anyway, to bring down like real hyper agitated energy, just something slow, steady, you know, and eventually it will de-escalate the energy. It will help calm it down and soothe that anxious kind of energy. Or even if if you feel anxious, you know, you can maybe, and you can probably hear my kids, they're gaming in the living room, but you can match it to your own heartbeat as well. So that's one way you can use it, to either raise up energy or to calm it down. Of course, if you want to raise it up, you go a little bit faster. You can use it to clear rooms or homes of negative energy. So if smudging is not available to you and you can't use that for whatever reason, but you happen to have a rattle, then you can use that. So you might go around, and how I do it, if I need to clean a room, like clear a room of negative energy, and if I'm not allowed to smudge or anything like that, I'll use my rattle and I'll go clockwise. So like from the moment like I walk in, let's say through that door back there, I'm trying to get my directions straight, I'll go clockwise around the room and, you know, work my way around here and then out the door and that kind of thing. So that's another way you can use this, is to clear negative energies from a room. And then you can use it as well to call in your ancestors and do ancestral magic. Many cultures throughout the world have incorporated rattles, and you see a little bit of it even in modern day times. What do people tend to give babies? Well, they give them a little baby rattle, right? And it's kind of neat to see that. This is a baby rattle made out of, oh, sorry, it's not focusing. It's made out of a gourd. And those are the seeds inside of it. So, I don't know, it's kind of neat to see how some of these things have still survived into modern day culture. I mean, nowadays you give a baby a rattle, to them it's just a toy, right? But in many cultures, it was a ceremonial object that was used for magical means or spiritual means. So yeah, rattles can come in all shapes and sizes and all can be made out of all kinds of things. So I've got 3 gourd rattles here. show them. This one has a very strong, kick-ass kind of energy to it. This one I will use for like severe, like if you're working with something that like there's some kind of evil entity and you need to kind of get rid of it. This is the guy I use. It has a very strong healing quality about it, very protective, and so this is like my go-to. I also sometimes will use this one to call in my ancestors if I want to do any kind of ancestral magic, and I love this. I got this one and this blue one when I was living in British Columbia. That would have been in 1999, so I've had them for quite some time. I got them from a lady out there who used to make them. So I'll just put these off to the side. Now in the fall when gourds are everywhere, you know, you can buy them at the supermarket because people buy them to decorate their homes. If you find yourself a gourd that you really like, you can dry them out and use them as your own rattles. You can make your own out of a gourd, which is what I've done with this one. This is like a little tiny baby one. I'm not sure if that even focused. But you have to make sure that if it's on a flat surface, you have to rotate it quite often so it doesn't get moldy or soft on the one side. Ideally, if you have one of those hanging fruit baskets that are made out of like wire mesh, you'd want to put something like this in there. That way air can get to it, but still rotate it regularly. It will take about a year or so to dry, depending on how humid your climate is. And once it's dried, what some people do, they will cut into them either with a drill, and then they'll use like a stiff wire and they'll try to clean out the insides, pull out the seeds. They might put in pebbles or crystals or stones or even corn, dried corn, and then they seal the hole shut and then they'll paint it and that kind of thing. So that's what some people do. Some will even, you know, cut the ends off, put in a dowel, they get all fancy with it. Or you can leave it kind of more natural, which is what I done. And the more you shake it, it will loosen the fibers that are attached to the seeds, and the seeds become loose, and then you get that. So this little baby rattle, I actually made it years ago. For my intention is to give it to my very first grandchild. So I am just waiting for my grandbaby to be born whenever my kids decide to go and have babies, which apparently isn't anytime soon, much to my dismay. I've got rattles that are made out of some kind of shell of a nut. Years ago, I think it was 2002, I had attended a conference in Saskatchewan, and it was the Aboriginal Government Employees Network Conference. And they had all kinds of vendors there. The one vendor that they had, the one booth, was a gentleman from South America. I'm not sure whereabouts in South America he was from. Like Chile or something like that, Bolivia. I'm not sure, but somewhere down south. And he had the most amazing things in his booth. And the one was like, it was a little, and I had bought it. It was a whistle, and it was carved in the shape of a bird. But if you just blew into it, it didn't sound like anything. You had to actually put water into the whistle in the one end of the bird, and then when you blew into it, it sounded like it was chirping. It was the most amazing thing, and it was like carved and painted, and it was so beautiful. And unfortunately, I lost it during my many moves. However, I did get 2 rattles from him, and there's like fuzzies. My cat's like hanging out with my magical tools and stuff. So they're made out of some kind of shell from a nut, and then they're drilled through the back. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. They're drilled through the back and tied with a string, and then the string is attached to this, like a little wooden stick. And then this one, they drilled right through the piece of wood. And I love working with these too. So I'll use these primarily just for like energy clearings, like these two. I'll use for energy clearings and sometimes ancestral work. I like the sound of them. They've got such a unique sound and it's so cool. So that gives you some ideas of like just two of the different types of materials that can be used for rattles. My last rattle is made out of a turtle shell on a dowel, and I got this, I think, in, oh boy, I don't even know when. Probably a good 20 years ago. I've had it for quite some time. And this one I will use, and it's covered in leather, different types of leather. There's like 3 different types of leather. There's like this dowel, and it's filled with corn. And this one I will use for ancestral magic. Pretty much I kind of reserve this one for just working with my ancestors. It has a very kind of ancient feel to it, and it's what I use this one for. And I call this one my grandfather rattle. It just has a very very like ancient, old, grandfatherly type of energy to it. So this is the one that I use for that, and it's quite a different energy compared to the other rattles I've shown you guys. There's also rattles made out of rawhide, and you can learn how to make those. There's different videos out there that show you guys how. You can even get like the big rawhide bones and let them soak in water for a long time. Like, I'm thinking the ones that are bleached white or whatever, and then you lay them flat, and it's really slimy and difficult to work with, and some people give up. And you kind of, you know, cut the shape out that you want, and you gotta punch holes into the outer ridges. Yeah, I tried making some, and then I got a little bit frustrated with it. I was like, forget this noise. A simpler way would be, instead of trying to punch holes and sew it together and that kind of thing, is you can literally get wet sand and get a round cutout of however kind of size you want, and put the round sand into the middle of this round cutout of rawhide. And then you can get a dowel, and you bring the rawhide up around the sand. So let's say this is the rawhide and it's filled with like wet sand, and you bring it up and you put the dowel inside. So let's pretend this is the dowel, and then you tie it shut with like a leather band, and you tie it shut, and then you just let it dry. Like, you try to form it into the shape you want. You try to get it as round as you can, and then you just let it dry. And if you don't want like a flat end to it like that, then you would have to let it dry and like suspend it from like leather or string or whatever, and just let it hang in, you know, eventually that leather, that rawhide will dry. Then you can untie the band, take the dowel out, get a wire, poke at the sand, pour out the sand, put in what you want to use for it to make noise. So it could be pebbles, crystals, it could be dried corn, whatever you want. You put in there, and you put the dowel back. Now the dowel may or may not fit back in properly, and if it doesn't, you might have to kind of wet the rawhide down just at the opening bit a little bit, and once, like, not drench it, but just enough where it's like pliable. Then you put the dowel in, tighten it up as best you can, and when you tie it off with the leather band, like make sure it's like super tight. And then what some people do is they'll even wrap the leather band like from the rawhide, and they'll just keep wrapping down the dowel or the handle part so that it's like on there and it's really secure. And then you got yourself a rawhide rattle, and you can paint them or leave them natural. It's all up to you. So that's my little video about rattles and things like that. Look up there, it's like 15 minutes of me rambling. So if you haven't worked with rattles, by all means, you know, explore, and you could try and make your own, or you could go buy some. Just make sure if you're going to use it for any kind of ceremonial purpose that you bless them, you smudge them, you cleanse them of all previous energies, that kind of thing, and then they should be ready to go. And as with any magical tool, it's really important to regularly cleanse your tools. I smudge mine. You put them out in moonlight or do whatever with them. So some people will literally bury them in potting soil or in the earth kind of thing, and let the earth absorb any negative energies from them, and then you can use them again. So whatever way works best for you. I hope you found this a little bit helpful, and let me know if you have your own rattles that you work with. If you want to link your own videos down below for that, that would be awesome. I would love to see what you have, or if you want to make a rattle. Maybe later in time, if I'm feeling more adventurous, I might try to make another rawhide one and take you guys all along with me on a journey. Maybe I'll be more patient this time around, because last time I wasn't, and we'll just see how it goes. So that's it for now. You guys have a great day. Ciao.